Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're cranking up the volume to break down one of World War II's most crucial naval battles, not just with history books, but through the lyrics of a heavy metal anthem that totally captures its fury. So that's from the Histrocore song Kido Butai, and wow, what a chorus, right? It's an absolutely intense summary of the devastating climax of the Battle of Midway, a clash that would literally change the course of the war in the Pacific in just a matter of minutes. So to really get how those dive bombers arrived, we first have to look at the force they were up against. And this was a force that up until this very moment seemed completely invincible. Japan's elite carrier fleet. You know, the lyrics put it perfectly. The Imperial Navy showed its might. And for 6 whole months after Pearl Harbor, the Kido Butai was this unstoppable force, a naval juggernaut that nobody could touch. They were the very tip of Japan's spear. And the song, it actually names them, and for good reason. This was the core of the Kido Butai sailing for Midway Atoll in June of 1942. These 4 veteran aircraft carriers, led by Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, had spearheaded the attack on Pearl Harbor, and they had never known defeat. So why Midway? Well, it was bait. You see, Admiral Yamamoto had this huge, really complicated plan to seize this tiny little atoll, because he knew the U.S. Navy would have to respond. He wanted to force the American carriers that got away at Pearl Harbor into one final, decisive battle and just wipe them off the map. Okay, so the entire Japanese plan, the whole thing, hinged on the element of surprise. But, as the song hints with that line, "But AF was uncovered," the Americans already knew they were coming. The Japanese were sailing right into a trap. So how'd they know? Well, it wasn't because they had more firepower or bigger ships. Nope. America's most powerful weapon, right at this moment, was a team of code breakers working out of a basement in Hawaii that they called the Dungeon. You gotta love this. The trick they pulled off was so simple, it's brilliant. The Americans thought the Japanese code AF meant Midway, but they had to be sure. So they had the troops on Midway send out a fake, uncoded radio message saying their water purification system was broken. Sure enough, a day later, they decode a new Japanese message. AF is short on water. Boom, the trap was confirmed. So, once Admiral Chester Nimitz knew the where and the when, he could play his hand, and man did he play it perfectly. He sent his only 3 available carriers, the Enterprise, Hornet, and the USS Yorktown, to lie in wait. And get this, the Yorktown had been badly damaged just a month earlier, but they patched her up in a mind-blowing 72 hours. An incredible effort that would prove absolutely decisive. All right, so the trap is set. The sun comes up on June 4th, and the battle begins. The first American planes to find the Japanese fleet flew straight into a wall of anti-aircraft fire and 0 fighters. It was, for all intents and purposes, a suicide mission. Histrocore gives a whole verse to this moment, and for a very, very good reason. The American TBD Devastator torpedo bombers were just tragically old news. They were slow, underarmed, and they were flying with no fighter cover. Their story is one of just unimaginable bravery against impossible odds. And the reality was just brutal. Out of 15 planes from Torpedo Squadron 8 that took off from the USS Hornet, every single one was shot down. They didn't even score a single hit on a ship. The other torpedo squadrons, they suffered pretty much the same fate. It was a complete massacre. But, and this is the crucial part, that sacrifice was not for nothing. While these attacks looked like a total failure, they were unknowingly setting the stage for victory. They kept the Japanese carriers dodging and weaving, unable to launch their own planes. And, most importantly, they pulled all the Japanese fighter planes down to sea level to swat these slow torpedo planes out of the sky. And what all that chaos did was create a window, just a tiny but absolutely fatal window of vulnerability. Because high above the clouds, another group of American planes was just arriving, and nobody on the Japanese side saw them coming. This was the moment that song's chorus was written for. Just look at how this all unfolds minute by minute. It's wild. For almost an hour, the torpedo bombers take an absolute beating from the Japanese defenses. And then, at 10:22 a.m., with the Japanese fighter screen totally out of position down at sea level, American dive bombers just appear, directly overhead. 6 minutes. That's it. Think about that. In about the time it takes to listen to a couple of songs, Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey and his dauntless dive bombers pretty much ended Japan's ability to wage offensive war in the Pacific. 6 minutes changed the world. And for the Japanese, the timing was just catastrophic.
The American bombs hit at the absolute worst possible moment. Their flight decks were jammed with planes being rearmed and refueled for their own strike. The decks were littered with bombs and fuel lines. When those American bombs hit, they turned these powerful warships into massive, uncontrollable infernos.
But wait, it's not over. In all that chaos and fire, one Japanese carrier, the Hiryu, actually escaped that first attack. And with the heart of a true warrior, she immediately started getting ready to strike back, all alone. The battle was not over yet.
And just like this song screams at you, Hiryu was still intact and struck back against the Yorktown, hit her deck. The Hiryu launched 2 separate waves of planes that managed to find and cripple the USS Yorktown, the very same carrier that had been miraculously repaired just days before.
But the Hiryu's incredible defiance, well, it couldn't last. Later that afternoon, American scout planes found her. A final wave of dive bombers was launched, and the last of Nagumo's great carriers was left ablaze, sealing the fate of the Kido Butai. You know, when the song ends with that line, "This was the end of the Kido Butai," that's not just some metal lyric. That's a straight-up, historically perfect summary of the battle's unbelievable impact. I mean, just look at the numbers. The losses were absolutely staggering for Japan. They lost their 4 best aircraft carriers, the very heart of their navy. But even worse, they lost over 3,000 men, including hundreds of their most experienced naval pilots who were simply irreplaceable. So think about it. In just one day, the entire balance of naval power in the Pacific just gets completely flipped on its head. Japan's seemingly unstoppable steamroller was stopped cold, and the strategic initiative swung over to the United States. From this point on, Japan would be on the defensive for the rest of the war. And all this brings us back to a question that historians still argue about today. Was this whole thing a miracle, born from heroic sacrifice and just a whole lot of luck? Or was Japan's overconfidence and their ridiculously complex plan a fatal flaw from the very beginning? The answer is probably a little bit of both. A perfect storm of intelligence, bravery, and pure chance that still echoes through history.